Welcome back to the weekly mailbag with the Chief of the North. I am Seth Kaiser, Chief of the North. And no, I'm not wearing red today, but my phone has a KC thing on it, one of those popper things. So that's probably good enough, right? As you guys know, if you're watching this by right now, especially if you're here right at the beginning, every week, what we try to do, you guys ask me some questions and I try to come up with some answers. And usually what I do in advance is I have last week's mailbag pulled up in front of me. And that's something that I totally remembered to do today. And I'm not at all vamping while I just sit here and start to do this. This is definitely something that I've done in advance because I would never be so unprofessional as to not pull it up in advance. Anyway, so the every week you ask questions, whether they're in the comment section below or whether they're on Twitter in response to me tweeting out asking for mailbag questions about the Chiefs, life. Once it was about how to make the best tombstone pizza, which may have been the best content I ever created. And I try to provide some answers. We do this every Thursday. Happy to have you on board for this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. And let's try to roll right into it, shall we? Although I'm curious if by the time you're seeing it, if it's Thursday, if it's not, and that was discombobulating for you, I apologize. Before we get into the questions, be sure to hit like, subscribe, do all the fun YouTube stuff. If you appreciate the content I or Ryan or Dan or Gary or anyone else on this channel puts out, those guys do great work, and I'm also here too. All right. If you want questions to get priority, put them in the comment section below. I start with that every week. And try to put question marks in front of it because otherwise it gets a little tough to sift through. But sift through we shall. Lev Mass asks, Seth, with the acquisition of another linebacker in Tranquil, do you think there's some underlying plans to move Leo up and over to play edge? And Lev gave some good reasons for it in terms of Leo Chanel's physicality and strength, and mentioned Micah Parsons, which is something people talk about a lot. Here's what I would say to that. We haven't seen anything from Leo Chanel that indicates he's an edge rusher. I haven't seen that. I didn't see that in his college film. I haven't seen that in his pro film just because he hasn't been tried that way. Now, maybe he does have, the requisite bend and some of the things that you need to be able to do that, but we just haven't seen it. And so for me, what that feels like is people, they take a pro comparison a little too far. So when you get a guy who's built relatively similarly to a guy, and maybe has a similar athletic profile, oh, well, he must be able to do the same things. And that's often not the case. I would just also note that despite their testing in shorts relatively similarly, Micah Parsons and Leo Chanel don't look the same on the field in terms of fluidity. And that's problematic for Leo. Now, maybe it's something that he's able to continue to build on. He also lacks really the length that you want to see with a guy on the edge by a fair margin. And that's probably one of the reasons why he's generally been an off-ball linebacker. It's kind of a cookie cutter thing. And sometimes, you got to have arms this long and that kind of stuff. Could he do it? Maybe. Is it worth trying? Sure. Why not? One would imagine, and perhaps this is giving everyone too much credit involved, one would imagine they would have tried that in practice at some point to at least see what it looks like, and they didn't like it. So I don't think that's the plan with Tranquil. I'm curious what the plan is with Tranquil because he's a guy that he played the most snaps on the Chargers defense last year. He played well. This isn't, bringing in a guy who, generally speaking, you would expect to take, 300 snaps. So I don't really know what the plan is. I know he's the best fit for a nickel and dime linebacker. His film last year would have made him the best coverage linebacker the Chiefs have right now. He's not as athletic as Willie Gay, but he's got better instincts. Rarely takes wrong steps. We talked about him quite a bit. So I'm curious what the plan is, and I'm curious what it means long-term for Willie Gay Jr. especially. But I'm, in terms of short-term, I'm curious what it means for Nick Bolton's snaps, because last year they treated Nick Bolton like the nickel and dime linebacker, and I think Tranquil is significantly better in those roles. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. Iceberg asks, what do you think about the Chiefs getting Randall Cobb? He had the same PFF grade as Juju last year. He could be really cheap. I wouldn't hate it. I don't know if it would necessarily solve the problems that they have currently in terms of having a guy that they can trust to beat man coverage. But I think it would raise the floor a little bit. But I'm pretty sure if the Chiefs signed him, I think Aaron Rodgers would drive to Kansas City and try to burn Arrowhead down. But it's hard to say. And let's see. I'm just making sure. See, you guys got to put the question marks. Oh, Thank you, Ashwin Menon. Hey, Seth, this might be something you might have already answered, but how exactly did you get into the industry considering you have another job, which might not be very related to the NFL? Do you have any advice for others who are looking to do the same? Man, well, I've been doing this so long that I was doing it before I had this job. So, I mean, I guess I'll give the short version of it. Is I lived in Minnesota, loved the Chiefs, didn't really have anyone to talk Chiefs with. And so, I'd go, remember the Kansas City Star message boards or bobgretz.com or the ESPN message boards just to talk Chiefs with people. Eventually found SB Nation and Arrowhead Pride. And after commenting there a little bit, wrote a few fan posts, kind of enjoyed it as like a creative outlet, just something kind of fun to do. And I just started kind of doing it a little more and a little more for fun. A contributor position opened up and I took it. And so I probably did it for free for a couple of years. Then once I started law school, I started to do it for a little bit of money here and there. And then things just kind of built onto themselves. And the more I wrote about football, the more I realized how little I knew about football and still know about football. And so I started to treat it a little more of it as a job and a way to try to learn more and more. And the more I learned about the game, the more I liked. Matt Castle was a big turning point for me, realizing how little I knew about the quarterback position after 2010 and thinking, oh, he's probably okay. Look at his stats. Yeah, I know. I want to go back in time and grab myself. What is wrong with you? And so it just kind of grew into something. The advice I would give anyone who's trying to break into this industry is it's not an easy thing to do. It requires a ton of work and a lot of luck, really. The advice I would give is to find a site that's looking for someone to contribute, and those are everywhere, and just start creating content, but be intentional about it. Don't just throw mud at the wall and see what sticks necessarily. Try to figure out what you're passionate about, what niche you want to fill, what's a piece of information that you wish was covered more often. When I started doing this a decade ago, the film review thing, going straight to fans and really going in depth on a snap by snap basis, was much less common than it is now. And I was fortunate enough to kind of be early in that. Not like I was the first with the idea. I certainly wasn't. Guys like I mean, well, he was Kalo Phoenix at the time, but guys like Craig Stout, I mean, they were doing film review long before I was, but it wasn't really common. And so I was fortunate there. So find a niche that's not being filled, something that you wish was covered more in depth, and then really examine it. How could you do it well? And then do it and be open to feedback, understand that, it's going to take time, and be kind to the people you come across along the way, and be willing to do, like in any other industry, what no one else is willing to do. I will never forget, and this isn't a humble brag thing, this is just what I'm trying to share, how tough it can be to break into this industry. I'll never forget one summer years and years and years ago when I was still working at SB Nation. We were at like a family camp type thing for our church's district assembly. And I had some stuff that I had to do there as like the youth pastor. And it was during Chiefs preseason, and a buddy of mine was helping like do security to make sure the teenagers weren't doing shenanigans all night. And he came to the upper room in the chapel, and he found me there. It was about 2 a.m. I was sitting there charting snaps of every offensive lineman in a preseason game. He goes, "What are you doing?" And I explained to him what I was doing. And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, because no one else will." And that's kind of what it takes, I think. Now, I think there's people more talented than me that it wouldn't take that. But that would be my advice. Like I said, find a place that needs contributors, because there's lots of places that are looking for that. Find a niche and fill it. And really, find something that you're passionate about and something that you don't think is being filled well. And then just be willing to grind harder than anyone else. And eventually, luck will find you, I think. Hopefully that wasn't too long-winded an answer, but that's something that people ask me about fairly frequently. Grayson Neely asks, what's the chances of signing Yannick at defensive end and trading for Michael Pittman or D-Hop? Thanks for your videos every week. Hey, thanks, Grayson. Yannick, that's an interesting idea, because, I mean, he's a relatively competent defensive end. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't been signed yet. I wouldn't mind that. That would definitely fill a hole to an extent to where you'd have another guy. Now, you wouldn't be a dude. And we've gone through the difference between guys and dudes before, but you would be another guy. And you need another guy in the pass rush. And that could be nice. I don't hate that idea. Michael Pittman, I would love it. It doesn't sound like he's available, but I think they should really be churning for any of these teams that really, have guys that have been around for a couple of years and are looking to start rebuilding. Any guy that's in his like third year of a rookie contract or fourth year of a rookie contract, and it's a team that might be rebuilding, the Chiefs should be knocking on the door and say, hey, do you think that guy's part of your long-term plans? Because we're a little more fully formulated over here. Let's see. I just want to make sure I don't miss anyone. Ryan White says, and Ryan, you commented last week that sometimes I can be hard to hear. Let me know if that's better this week, because I'm trying to talk louder and not quite as fast. Ryan says, Seth, let's say they acquire Nuke or Nuke. Is it Nuke or Nuke? You know what? I've only ever seen it. Anyway, DeAndre Hopkins or OBJ. Then what would be your preferred position group they attack with first round pick? I say it's still going to be tackle, edge, or wide receiver. For me, it's defensive line, preferably edge. That's one of the first guys that I'm going to write about is going to be an edge rusher for the Know Your Draft Crush series. And it's going to be great because there's no way I'm going to pronounce his name correctly. So that's going to be fun. Definitely defensive line if they're able to shore up that position, because they've got a couple young receivers in the building. I think if that would go that route, I would go defensive line first round. Again, depending on how the draft falls. If 8 edge rushers have already been taken, then no. Then grab a tackle or grab a receiver. Grab whichever of those 3 position groups didn't get picked clean and get your guy. Talon MS, Seth, are you nuts? Justin Ross was a stud year 1, was projected to be a number 1 wide receiver taken by the time he was eligible before injury. After coming back, he was good, not great. But before that, he was a beast. I absolutely, to an extent, agree. I do think some of that was the and I'm answering the question, am I nuts? Maybe, probably. I think some of that to an extent was the quarterback play and the fit in terms of it's a lot easier to moss college receivers college corners. The coach also put him in before he was ready and healthy. The Chiefs did the best thing to let him heal. I hope he works out for real because I've seen Ross at his best and he's impressive. I 100% hope so too. I hope that what you saw from him early on is exactly what he's able to do in the pros. I don't know if the way he won in college is going to consistently win at the pros. It's really difficult to be that guy, to have the DeAndre Hopkins type career. You've got to be a technician and you've got to be incredible with ball skills. Now, could he maybe do it? Absolutely. And that would be terrific. I don't want to become the, Seth hates, Justin Ross guy, because that I don't want to be that guy about any guy. It's just kind of a matter of figuring out what's most likely to occur. Mo asked me about that. Did you say Ross couldn't get separation in college? What film has you watched? These guys who speak bad on Ross once didn't think Mahomes was good. Pick for us. Video doesn't lie. And now they love Mahomes. LOL. Mo, you should probably go check out an article I wrote before the draft in 2017 about Patrick Mahomes. Because what I wrote was that the Chiefs should trade up for Patrick Mahomes because he was the best quarterback in the draft. I watched him from every year. And I don't think he was particularly good at getting separation compared to other receivers who I would view as more elite level prospects. But again, maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. What other questions? Yeah, man, I upset a lot of people. Micah L told me to ask Alabama if he can get separation. I have watched the Alabama film. He had a really great game. And so let's see. Any more questions? Do you think DJ Chark is worth bringing in? I would have, but he got signed. So that is it's an unfortunate thing. Man, the number of people, I bet 5 or 6 people commented they were very upset about Justin Ross. And yeah, I'm really sorry that I upset you guys. I really didn't mean to. That said, I hope that I look like the biggest idiot on earth and he becomes the most separation creating 1,500-yard guy this year. That would be a tremendous story. He's worked really hard to get back where he is, and suffering the kind of injury he did in college, that had to have been so tough to come back from. And it speaks to his character that he's even where he's at now. And so if he shows something a little bit different this preseason than what it looked like in college, post-injury and even a little pre-injury, that would be terrific. And I will be the first person to say, holy cow, look at this guy. And I'm so excited to write that article if it happens. All right, we're moving on to the Twitter questions. And I'm going to try to get through these as quickly as possible because you guys asked a bunch of them. All right. Thor Woodinson asks, why has no one in the NFL found someone like Yao Ming to use in short yardage and near goal line stuff? Can't beat him to a jump ball, right? I don't think so, because the problem is most 7-footers, yet they're 7 feet tall and they've got really long arms, but they've only got 6-inch vertical. And that bounces out when you're going up against guys with 30-inch verticals. And just then the ball skills and the coordination become way too important. So I assume that's why. Tycho Magnetic Anomaly asks, thoughts on the ESPN mock draft that has picking, oh boy, Adetomiwa Adebawar. I butchered that. I don't watch college football. I apologize to that guy because I can't pronounce names. Everyone knows it. I look forward to someone phonetically spelling it for me in the comments. The more I look at him, the more I love his fit and ability to play inside out. What do you think? I don't know yet, but I've got 3 of his games on all 22 that I'm going to take a look at. He's actually the first guy I'm going to look at in the Know Your Draft Crush series because there's been so much conversation about him to Kansas City because of that inside out ability. Blake Johns says, Chiefs take Darnell Washington at 31. Never have fewer than 3 tight ends in the field at a time. You win. Otherwise, if not a wide receiver at 31, top 3 wide receivers you'd like to have. I don't know which wide receivers I'd like yet. Haven't watched the film. 13 personnel giveth, but it can also taketh away if it's your primary. But you know what? I mean, when you've got guys that are as varied as Kelsey, Gray, Fortson, Bell, and then Washington, you could talk me into it. It would be really interesting to see the Chiefs just go a totally new route, similar to Belichick back before, Aaron Hernandez murdered someone. It would be real, that whole 2 tight end thing. I mean, they broke the league with that. And there's a reason for that because the matchup issues that creates when you've got guys that can play inside and out. So that would be interesting, at least. It would be such a break from what Reed's done in the past. Slam92 asks, do you think there's any chance the Chiefs surprise us, take one of the high-end defensive tackles in the first round? Maybe. I think it depends on the draft board falls. The thing is, pairing a guy with Jones, there's only one 3-tech. Right? You want 2 guys in the interior who can rush the passer. But I don't know if they're going to put as much importance on it with Jones. That said, I would love to see them do it. And they have prioritized trying to rotate guys in to find someone. And I think that's Charles Omenihu. I think that's a guy who's going to be inside more than people realize. I actually am okay with their pass rushing defensive tackle looks because Omenihu and Dana are better there than they are outside. Dana is a lot better in there. Actually, both of them are quite a bit better on the inside than outside. So I'm actually pretty comfortable with what they have as pass rushers next to Jones on obvious passing downs. Lewis asks, looking ahead, would a trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr. be a better option for KC? That way they can get the best defender available at 31. Based on everything I've seen on Marvin Harrison Jr., and he's actually a guy that I've looked at a little just because, everyone talks about him. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be remotely in a position to even trade up for him. I think he's going to be a top 5 pick. He looks unbelievable. Matt Lur says, with 2 quarterbacks taken in the 22 draft that were top 30 visits, does Veach value Senior Bowl participants or top 30 visits more? I personally think it's prospect by prospect. I think it's more. I know they value the Senior Bowl for sure, but I think it's just with Senior Bowl, I think they utilize that to see how small school guys comport themselves against a little higher level competition. Power just wanted to drop by and say a big thank you, Seth. For oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Kyle Fisher asks, what are your 2 favorite free agency moves Veach has made so far? And what 2 positions do we draft first? I'm going to give a real basic opinion here. Taylor and Omenihu, they haven't made that many free agency moves, really. But Taylor and Omenihu are both signings I really, really like a lot. I think if Taylor is 90% of the pass protector he was in Jacksonville, he'll be an upgrade in pass pro. Switching right tackle, left tackle is never easy, so we'll see how that goes. I think Omenihu would have been the second best pass rusher on the Chiefs last year. And so I'm excited about both of them. I think those are great moves. In terms of the first 2 draft picks, I think you end up with, if it were me, it would be in some order, defensive end and receiver. I'm guessing with the Chiefs, it'll be defensive end, receiver, and or tackle. Info Apocalypse, will Veach ever trade down? Yes, he has, actually. Which outside of for a quarterback is statistically superior to trading up by miles? Oh, you're saying it's superior statistically to trading up. Um, Here's what I'll say with that. You reach a point of the argument becoming a little absurd in terms of, oh, it's better to trade down. Well, it's better to trade down if you assume that it's all a crapshoot, which it kind of is a lot of the time. Um, I think there's got to be a blend there, but and I understand statistically speaking where you're going to get the most value. But if it's just a crapshoot, in theory, this is where you end up where 5, 6 round picks are worth more than a first round pick. And that's an absurd taking it to an extreme there. But I think that's that by the fact that, well, Seth, that's ridiculous. You're taking it too far. Sure, yes, which means that there's somewhere a balance here. I just don't know where it is. And Veach has traded down before. He definitely prefers to trade up, though, for sure. Ruben M asks, how much confidence do you have in Lucas Niang to be able to start at tackle? On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at about a 4, maybe a 3. And that's just partly because he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Now, I think last year he was able to, and maybe being able to take a full year of mostly being healthy and sitting on the bench, we'll kind of see where it goes from there. I liked his college film overall when he wasn't playing hurt. He looked like he had a lot of potential. I guess we'll see. My understanding is that there's been some, keeping his weight under control, which is tough they're just big guys. It's tough for me to keep my weight under control. So we'll see how that goes. DC says favorite target for a wide receiver trade. I mean, if I had to pick a favorite, I don't think he's available at all. Brandon Ayuk would be my favorite. But I don't think he's available, unfortunately. Infopocalypse asks, why was Blake Bell signing now and not till after draft like normal? I would assume I feel like they're done at tight end. We'll see what they decide to do, but I think they're done there. And I think that's part of why they did it now. Hart, Jason D, and I'm trying to get through as many of these as possible. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get through all of them. Asks, what do you think of the rookie corners this year? They were excellent. Trent McDuffie looks like, to use the KCSN guy's language, a blue chipper. I think McDuffie has top 10, top 5 corner potential. And he was already a really good corner last year. Arguably a better cover guy than Snead. And Snead's a really good corner. So, I mean, I'm so excited about them. And Watson and Williams both played so far above their draft slots. It's really, really exciting to see. Also, why do you hate Nick Bolton? Stop it, guys. I don't. It's so important with every player to talk about their strengths and their weaknesses. And what ends up happening with some players who I think I tend to talk about players versus the general narratives around them. So if you've got a player who, is generally thought about as bad or treated like they're bad, like say, look, Orlando Brown Jr. I kind of, for a while, got treated like I was the Orlando Brown Jr. excuse maker guy because I generally was talking about the fact that he was better than the way the fan base was generally viewing him. And that can happen sometimes. And then with Nick Bolton, it can be somewhat the opposite because the way Nick Bolton gets talked about by some or much of the fan base is that he's an elite overall linebacker. And he does have issues in coverage and in space that are very real things that get him picked on in the middle of the field at times. And so when I end up talking about that, I end up looking like the hater. So I don't. I think he's a good player. I value the fact that he's in Kansas City. I just think he's got some limitations that can be problematic at times. Podcast 1558 asks, hey, free shout out. There you go. Is it the right move to trade Snead before the draft? I have not heard much about our plans for him. I don't think so. No, he's in the last year of his rookie deal. They need to hang on to him. He's an excellent player. I think he's one of their foundational guys in all likelihood. Gurky asks, and I think this is as far as we're going to be able to get. Are there any concerns with Chris Jones' extension still lingering out there? For me, there is. Because that's something that would have given them more flexibility to do more this year. Although there's always the salary cap stuff and then there's the cash stuff. So whether or not, even if they'd extended Jones, whether they would have enough cash in the budget and Clark Hunt has the money, but there's still a budget there. And that's how that works. Life includes budgets. Whether or not they would have been able to be more aggressive, I don't know what their cash spending limit is year by year. But I'm a little worried. That bothers me a little bit because that to me feels like an easy call. We'll see. Having 1 year left, I hate letting a guy like him hit the market, even if you've got the franchise tag option and all that stuff. I hate that. I like signing them a year early. I understand sometimes that's tough, so we'll see. Long live the Chiefs. Asks, is Mahomes an alien? Probably. Um, just a few more here. Chiefs Calculus asks, Hardman played well when used as a traditional wide receiver. Why didn't the Chiefs use him like that very much? With Hardman, I saw some progress in his routes his rookie year as it went along. And you saw him improve on certain things in terms of finding some soft spots in the zones, not rounding out his routes quite as much. He was a tough player, but it was consistency, I think. He wasn't always consistent in his sight adjustments, and he wasn't always consistent with his adjustment to the ball in the air. And I think that consistency issue, I think the Chiefs value consistency over talent at wide receiver. Now, if you can get both, like a Tyreek Hill, that's tremendous. But I think they really, really value the guy that they know will do the quote unquote right thing every single time. And that's how you end up with Justin Watson getting so many snaps last year. I hope Hardman has like a 1,200-yard season next year. That would be awesome to see because he had such a tough injury. All right. Cody Goodwin, this is the last one I'm going to have time for, says, I want JSN. How does Veach maneuver to get him in round 1? He's a receiver I'm really excited to get. I think with wide receiver, you never know who might be kind of the number one guy in this draft. There's 3 or 4 different guys that are kind of, you're not 100% sure. And so all it takes is him being the 3rd or 4th to where, he gets into, the late teens, early 20s. The draft also, because you're going to have multiple quarterbacks taken early this year, probably multiple defensive linemen taken early this year. There's a chance that the wide receivers get pushed back a little bit. And so if that run is a little bit later, gives him a shot to go grab them. All right. We have gone way longer than I meant to. I appreciate you guys for listening, watching, supporting, commenting, even the ones that are mad at me for the things that I say. I appreciate you especially. As always, make sure you do all, again, the YouTube stuff, hit like, subscribe, support the good work the guys are doing here. They just do such a great job. This is one of my favorite parts of the job, just talking directly to you guys. Thanks again for listening. It is a great week to be a Chiefs fan.